So far in our CSS work, we have been just working with color names. We've used websites like this one to find color names. Some of you use those to track something, track a color down that you want to use. And today, this assignment, this exercise is about doing color some different ways. We're going to use what's called the RGB model, RGB model, red, green, blue, and also the hexadecimal way to do it. And I want you to do these because I just want you to know about them. Now, later on when you're doing CSS coding, if you want to use color names, you can. But I want you to know about these other ways you can do it. There's a handout that's linked up on Google Classroom. The one thing I want to point out here is that really all you have to do on this CSS page that I'm about to show you is that you have to change some color properties, and that's really all you have to do. Now, if you want to do some other properties of CSS like font family or text size or text align, you certainly are welcome to, but the only thing you have to do today is change color, but you have to do it a certain way. Now, one of the things you probably will need is a color picker, an online color picker. And if you go to open a tab in Google and just search for color picker, my goodness, Google has one right there. It just puts it right at the top of the page. There's a gazillion other links down here for color pickers, but I'm not even going to look any farther than this. I'm just going to use this one right here. Some of the color work we're going to do is going to be RGB, and some of it's going to be hex, and I'll show you how you're going to know. All right, you will have a link to code that looks like this, and it's got 6 different headings, a paragraph, and a list. And if you look at the CSS page, right, the index.html, again, you don't really have to do anything with that. It's a silly page that I wrote. You can read it. And you do have to read parts of it because it tells you what color to make things. But when you go to the CSS page, one thing you're going to notice today that we haven't done before is comments. Like here at line number 8. It says, write a rule set below for H1 headings. Set the color of the H1 headings to a shade of red. I'm not going to care what shade of red. And use RGB. Well, in this demo, I'm going to show you how to do it. So here we go. Right below that comment, right? See, the comment is at line 8. So I'm down here. I'm sitting down here on line, 9 or 10 or whatever. And I'm going to make a rule for H1. And I'll put in a curly bracket, and I'll press enter a couple of times and put in another. Now, the only thing you have to do here, right, the only requirement is that you're going to have to put in a color property, colon, and now it's going to have to be a shade of red, but do not just pick it off of the list. Here's what we're going to do. When you're doing it RGB, and it tells you in that comment on line 8, shade of red and use RGB. All right, here's what you have to do. You have to type the letters RGB, you have to start a set of parentheses, and then I'm going to run over to that color picker, and it's going to be some shade of red, right? Light red, dark red, whatever, that's kind of up to you. You decide what you want. I'm just using the color picker here, and I'm dragging around, I'm finding a shade of red that I like. The advantage of using RGB and hex is that you have a lot more color choice. The color names are great, but you actually do have a lot more color choice if you're using RGB or hex. All right, so I'm gonna go with kind of a deep red here, and right below that, it's showing me the RGB values, the amount of red, green, blue. By the way, these numbers can run anywhere from 0 to 255 for all 3 of those. So I'm going to select this. Right, I just drag over it, and you can guess, right? I'm going to copy that. I'll bring it back over here, and I'm going to paste it right after that parenthesis. I'm going to paste it. And now to finish this off, I've got to close the parentheses, and I got to put a semicolon. Don't forget to put the semicolon. Be in the habit of putting the semicolon at the end of your sentence. And if you'll look at my H1 heading over there, it did turn to that deep red color. And now you can see the structure of how you do it with RGB. Color, colon, RGB, parenthesis. And you have the red, the amount of green, the amount of blue. Close parentheses, semicolon, bingo. All right, so let's jump down. At line 13, it says write a rule for H2 headings. Okay, H2, bracket, press enter a couple of times, another bracket. And again, if you wanted to, back there on that H1, I could have changed its font family or something like that if I felt like it, but I'm just going to change colors. That's all that's required of you today. So this one on the H2, it says make it some shade of yellow. a goldish yellow or yellow or whatever you want. Okay, so I'm going to do RGB. This one says, it says use RGB. Read the comments, people. Read the comments, and it tells you what to do. RGB parenthesis, and now I'm going to jump back over to my color picker. I'll click down here on this bottom bar. I'll drag it around here and get into the yellow area on the bottom bar, and then I'll just kind of drag around up in here. And like I say, if you want a real yellow, great, or if you want a lighter yellow or more of a gold, if you want more of a goldish color, push it a little more toward orange, and you get a little bit more gold in there. All right, but whatever you want. All right, so now I've got some RGB numbers down here, 255, 224, 25. So I'm going to take those, I'm going to copy those, I'm going to come back over to my code, I'm going to paste them in, close my parentheses, put in my semicolon, and my H2 headings have now turned to that yellowish gold color. I'll do one more of RGB, and then I'm going to move on. The next one, now you got to read the comments, and you got to do all of them, and you got to do them the right way. It's an assignment where you have to do some of them RGB, and I'll show you hex in a minute. All right, so on the next one down, and I've pushed these down a little bit. Now at line 24, it says write a rule for H3 headings, and set the color to some shade of green and use RGB. So it's going to be H3, a couple of brackets. All right, and then I'm going to go color, colon, and I'll run over here to the color picker. It's got to be some shade of green, so you get whatever shade of green you want. You take the RGB numbers. Right now for me, it's 29, 133, 38. I'm going to copy that, going to bring it over, going to paste it in, close the parentheses, put the semicolon, and I didn't put, caught my error here, I didn't put RGB back at the beginning of it, so you got to do that. I got in too big of a hurry. So RGB parenthesis, I got my numbers in there, got my semicolon, and my H3 heading is a shade of green. All right, so the next one down says to do an orange with RGB. Now when we get down to the next one, when you're doing the H5 heading, it says we're going to do a shade of blue, and then we're going to use hex. All right. Well, it's not terribly different. I'm going to go cut. No, sorry. I got this is an H5 heading. Put in my brackets. Color, colon. All right. Now for hex, you don't have to type the word hex or anything. Here's what you do. You just go back to the color picker. This has to be some shade of blue. So I'm going to drag the slider around down here into the blue area and just go find a shade of blue that I'm happy with. Kind of like that when it gets some gray in it. I kind of like the way that looks. And right below it here, pointing to it right now, here's the hexadecimal representation of that color, right? And I'll just select that. It has the pound sign. You have to have the pound sign and everything there. Pound 46669E. So I'm going to copy that hexadecimal, bring it back over, and just paste it in, and then just put a semicolon. Now, an H5 heading is really small, but it did turn blue. It turned blue. Yay. All right. So for an H6, it's super fast. H6 bracket, close bracket, get up in there, color, colon. This has to be a shade of brown, and it's got to be hexadecimal. All right, so brown is kind of between yellow and red. So you'll have to kind of push this over between yellow and red. You get a bunch of tans and browns in here. I'm going to use the hexadecimal. Take that hexadecimal number right there, copy that, paste it in, put a semicolon at the end of it. And again, it's tiny, tiny, but it really is a shade of brown. Okay, and then I think you've probably seen enough. That's it. No, like I said, if you really wanted to play around with it some more and change things like font families or text align or font size text size, you can do any of that you want. But you got to do all of these. You got to come in here and write a rule for paragraphs. You got to write a rule for the ordered list that's down here and set it to some shade of pink and use hexadecimal. Follow the directions. Read the directions and follow the directions. They're in here in the comments. Okay. But I think I'm going to bail here. I don't think you need to watch me do anymore. This is just about knowing how to use the RGB numbers to set a color and how to use the hexadecimal code to set a color. And if you can show me you can do that, then you're golden. All right, let's go.